the people with good ideas, you have to have the courage to support them, especially if they're iconoclastic, because the good ideas are going to be iconoclastic. This gets back to strategy versus operational effectiveness. A good, innovative, strategic idea is not one that looks more efficient. It's one that takes a totally different approach that makes completely different trade offs that at the surface level will appear to be ridiculous. And then it is the courage to actually do that, which means professional and career risk. I took some pretty significant risks as the captain on staff, trying to make sure that we take AFRL seriously, that we take Space Camp seriously, that we take Platform One seriously, and all the teams that people like you had formulated, these other innovators, like to support and defend them and actually like engage, but at the opportunity cost of supporting the actual programs. Like I got yelled at. Like I had a verbal counseling. Me and our other friend that we were called in by my supervisor and she yelled at us and she was so angry. Like she had tears in her eyes, how furious she was that we had been spending so much time supporting you over the multi-billion-dollar program of record. And so you have to take those hits to defend those people. And then eventually you have to be that person. And so I transitioned from being the person to defending the innovators to being the innovator. And that's hard because you have to make those trade offs. And the dilemma is that the best stuff is going to be the iconic stuff or iconoclastic stuff. It's going to be the controversial stuff. You have to stand up and you have to defend that position. And it's so easy to look back retrospectively and be like, yeah, obviously these programs were going to work. But at the time, you have no idea. You have no way of knowing if this is going to be successful or if it's not. So you have to be willing and comfortable to take those risks and then to go for it. And so that worked out. And it was mostly just, I think I took the courage and work ethic, but it was also just good timing. Like I just got lucky. But then after having been lucky and then placed in this amazing opportunity, consider the professional and career risk I take. I'm the first and only Space Force officer as a U.S. National Defense Fellow at MIT. I'm charged with understanding the emerging strategic implications of technology. What everyone expects of me is to study space. I'm an astronautical engineer. That's what is expected of me. What isn't expected is for me to put on a uniform and go on the best business podcast and talk about the strategic implications of Bitcoin. I get a bunch of flack for that. I take enormous professional and career risk for doing that. I take a lot of spears, and it's only until 10 years from now where we look back and we see if that was a good decision. And at that point, it won't even appear radical. If I'm right, it will just appear self-evident, as it always does. It's self-evident that we should do CI/CD and do a better way of developing software, but it wasn't self-evident at the time. You have to take risks. You have to be willing to put yourself out there in the face of enormous uncertainty. Another thing that I just recently discovered is you have to figure out how to forgive all the people who were against you the entire time. Like you have to take the higher path because they're going to turn and then they're going to act. Like my supervisor who yelled at me flipped 180 and pretended like she supported you the entire time, like it was her idea. And you just have to accept that and say yes, and then shake your hand. And that hurts because you go through some emotional trauma. If it's a really good idea, if it's really disruptive, you're going to take some emotional trauma and fear. And then just to, like you've demonstrated this well, to just graciously give the credit to other people, knowing that the greater good is progress as the organization as a whole, rather than scorched earth, get your vengeance on the people who tried to stop you. It takes that too. So I'm taking a risk. I'm getting a lot of flack. If I'm wrong, no big deal. You have to allow your feelings to be hurt when people post mean things on Twitter. But I can handle that. But that's if I'm wrong. If I'm right and people realize it, then you have to have the grace and humility and foresight to not be disdainful, but to just continue moving the ball forward.